The country club's private dining room was decorated with pastel flowers and white linens. 38 members of the Morrison family filled the space with laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses. Easter brunch at the Riverside Country Club had been a family tradition for 15 years. This year it was about to become something else entirely. I sat at the far end of the table, cutting into eggs Benedict I had no appetite for. My sister Melissa sat across from me, looking radiant in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She caught my eye and smiled, that practiced pageant-perfect smile she'd been using since high school. I didn't smile back. Near the window, partially hidden behind a decorative palm, sat a woman in a navy blazer. She had a leather folder on the table in front of her and a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. Our eyes met briefly. She gave me the smallest nod. Everything was in place. My father stood up, tapping his knife against his crystal water glass. The room quieted immediately. Richard Morrison commanded attention. It was one of his gifts, honed through 30 years of running a successful real estate firm. "Family," he began, his voice warm and authoritative. "I want to thank you all for being here today. Easter is about renewal, about new beginnings, about family coming together." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. My mother Patricia beamed at him from her seat, her hand resting on Melissa's shoulder. "As many of you know, we lost my mother 6 months ago." His voice caught just enough to seem genuine. Eleanor Morrison was an extraordinary woman who believed in family above all else. I set down my fork carefully. "Here it comes." Before she passed, my mother established a trust fund for her grandchildren. A substantial trust fund, meant to provide security and opportunity. He paused, scanning the room. The fund was to be divided equally between my daughters, Katherine and Melissa. My stomach tightened. I could see where this was going. "However," Dad continued, "life has a way of changing our circumstances. Katherine has built a successful career as a software engineer. She owns her own home. She's financially stable and independent." Several relatives nodded approvingly. Uncle Tom even raised his glass slightly in my direction. Melissa, on the other hand, has been struggling. He looked at my sister with practiced sympathy. "The economy has been tough. She's been between opportunities. She needs support to get back on her feet." Melissa dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. I wanted to throw my water glass at her. "So, after considerable thought and discussion with Patricia, we've made a decision." Dad straightened his shoulders. "Katherine's portion of the trust fund, all $400,000, will be transferred to Melissa. This will allow Melissa to pay off her debts, find stable housing, and invest in her future." The room erupted in supportive murmurs. Aunt Linda actually clapped. Cousin James called out, "That's so generous, Kate." "Generous." As if I'd agreed to this. "We know Katherine will understand," my mother added, standing to join my father. "She's always been the responsible one. The selfless one. She knows what family means." I looked at my sister. Melissa met my gaze with triumph barely concealed behind fake tears. She knew exactly what this was. This wasn't about helping her. This was about taking what was mine because she'd squandered everything else. "No," I said quietly. The word cut through the chatter. Heads turned. "What was that, sweetheart?" Dad's smile didn't reach his eyes. I stood up, my chair scraping against the polished floor. I said no. "You're not transferring my inheritance to Melissa." My mother's face tightened. "Katherine, this is hardly the time." "Then you shouldn't have made it a public announcement." I looked around the room at 38 sets of eyes. "You put this on display. So let's discuss it openly." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad said, his voice hardening. "We've made our decision as your parents. You've made a decision about my inheritance. From my grandmother. Not yours to give away." Melissa's tears dried up remarkably fast. "Kate, I'm struggling. I need help. You're 29 years old and you've blown through 3 trust funds already." Kept my voice level. "Grandpa's trust when you were 21, gone in 8 months on a fashion business that never materialized. Mom's parents' inheritance when you were 25, spent on a condo you lost to foreclosure. Dad's settlement money last year, I don't even know where that went." "That's enough," my father said sharply. "No, it's not." I turned to face him directly. "You're taking my inheritance. Money Grandma Eleanor specifically left to me, and giving it to someone who's proven she can't handle money. And you're doing it without even asking me. You don't need it, Mom said, her voice rising. Look at you. Look at what you have. You're doing fine. I'm doing fine because I work 80-hour weeks. Because I saved every penny. Because I didn't blow money on designer clothes and trips to Europe and cars I couldn't afford. I looked at Melissa. I earned what I have. She's never earned anything in her life. How dare you? My father's fist slammed down on the table. Glasses jumped. Wine sloshed. The entire room flinched. You selfish, ungrateful. Richard. Aunt Carol stood up. Maybe we should discuss this privately. No. Dad's face was red now, the careful facade cracking. She needs to hear this. Katherine, your grandmother would be ashamed of you right now. Ashamed of your selfishness. Your sister is family. Family. And you're going to stand there and refuse to help her? I've helped her. My voice was cold now. I paid her rent last year. $2,400. Never paid back. I co-signed her car loan. She defaulted. Destroyed my credit. I gave her $5,000 for emergencies 2 years ago. She bought a designer purse collection. Melissa's face went pale. But sure, Dad. Tell me more about how selfish I am. Enough. My mother's voice cracked across the room. This inheritance is happening whether you like it or not. We're your parents. We know what's best for this family. Actually, a new voice said, that's not how trusts work. Every head in the room turned toward the window. The woman in the navy blazer stood up, folder in hand. She walked toward our table with calm, measured steps. My father's eyes narrowed. Who the hell are you? Diane Fletcher. Notary public and witness to Eleanor Morrison's trust documents. She opened her folder and pulled out several papers, each bearing official stamps and signatures. I was asked to be present today to clarify any misconceptions about the disposition of Mrs. Morrison's estate. The room was absolutely silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. This is a private family matter, my mother said tightly. Not anymore. Diane's smile was professional and completely devoid of warmth. You made it public when you announced your intentions to 38 witnesses in a country club dining room. So let's make the facts equally public. She laid the first document on the table. This is Eleanor Morrison's trust agreement, executed 14 months before her death. Notarized by me, witnessed by her attorney Michael Chin and her financial advisor Robert Paulson. My father reached for the document. Diane pulled it back smoothly. The trust establishes 2 separate, irrevocable trusts. One for Katherine Elizabeth Morrison, one for Melissa and Morrison. Each trust contains $400,000 in liquid assets and investment holdings. She looked directly at my father. The trusts are irrevocable, Mr. Morrison. That means you cannot change them, alter them, or transfer funds between them. Not as parents, not as co-executors, not under any circumstances. That's not, Mom started. Furthermore, Diane continued, laying down a second document, Eleanor Morrison included specific provisions regarding attempts to coerce or manipulate the beneficiaries. Let me read the relevant section. She adjusted her glasses. Should any party attempt to pressure, coerce, or manipulate either beneficiary into surrendering, transferring, or forfeiting their inheritance, said party shall be immediately removed from any and all roles in the estate administration, and the aggrieved beneficiary shall receive an additional penalty payment of $50,000 from the general estate funds. The color drained from my father's face. Your mother knew, I said quietly. She knew exactly what you'd try to do. Diane laid down a third document. This is a sworn affidavit from Katherine Morrison, dated 3 days ago, detailing the coercion attempts made by Richard and Patricia Morrison over the past 2 months. Phone calls, text messages, emails. All documented. All time-stamped. You've been planning this, Melissa whispered, staring at me. I've been protecting myself, I corrected. Grandma told me to. She sat me down 8 months before she died and said, Kate, they're going to come after your money. Your father will use guilt. Your mother will use obligation. Melissa will cry and play victim. Don't let them. My voice cracked slightly. She knew her own son better than he thought she did. Uncle Tom cleared his throat. Richard, maybe you should sit down. Dad didn't move. He stood there, fists still clenched on the table, face red, breathing hard. The mighty Richard Morrison, real estate mogul, community leader, suddenly looking very small. "There's more," Diane said. She pulled out a final document. "Because the coercion clause has been triggered, Katherine Morrison is entitled to the $50,000 penalty payment. Additionally, Richard and Patricia Morrison are removed as co-trustees. The corporate trustee, First National Bank, assumes full control of both trust distributions." She set the document down with finality. "Katherine's trust is untouchable. Melissa's trust is untouchable. Any further attempts to manipulate, pressure, or coerce either beneficiary will result in legal action, including possible criminal charges for elder abuse. Yes, attempting to circumvent the wishes of a deceased woman's estate can qualify." My mother sat down heavily. She looked like someone had punched her. Melissa was crying again, real tears this time. "Kate, please. I really do need help. I'm drowning in debt. I'm going to lose my apartment." "Then get a job," I said. Not cruelly. Just factually. A real job. Not a consulting opportunity, or a business venture. A job with a paycheck and health insurance and a 401k. Like the rest of us. "I don't know how." "Then learn." I picked up my purse. "You're 29 years old. It's time." I turned to Diane. "Thank you for being here." "My pleasure." She gathered her documents. "The trust distribution will proceed as originally planned. You'll receive quarterly payments starting next month, or you can access the principal for approved expenses: education, home purchase, business investment, medical needs. All outlined in the trust documents." I looked at my father. He still hadn't moved. "Grandma didn't leave that money to you, Dad. She left it to me. Because I was there. I sat with her every weekend. I drove her to doctor's appointments. I held her hand when she was scared." My voice wavered. "I loved her. Not her money. Her." "We loved her too," my mother said weakly. "You visited her 6 times in her last year." I'd counted. I'd kept track. 6 times. I was there 67 weekends in a row. 67. I walked toward the exit. At the door, I turned back to face the room. 38 witnesses who'd just seen the Morrison family's dirty laundry aired in spectacular fashion. "Happy Easter, everyone. I hope you enjoyed brunch." Outside, the April sunshine felt warm on my face. Diane walked out behind me, heels clicking on the pavement. "That went well," she said drily. I laughed, surprising myself. "Did it? You stood your ground. You protected your inheritance. You honored your grandmother's wishes." She handed me a business card. "If they try anything else, and they might, call me immediately." "Thank you." I meant it. "Really. Your grandmother hired me personally, 14 months before she died. She sat in my office and said, 'I need someone who will make sure my granddaughter doesn't get steamrolled by my son.'" Diane smiled. She was a very wise woman. She was. I watched Diane drive away, then sat in my car for a long moment. Through the country club windows, I could see my family still seated in the dining room. My mother had her head in her hands. My father stood rigid, probably already planning his next move. Melissa sat alone, mascara running. Part of me felt guilty. The part that had been trained since childhood to keep the peace, to be the good daughter, to sacrifice for family harmony. But a larger part, the part that had spent 67 weekends watching my grandmother fade away while my family stayed conspicuously absent, felt something else entirely. Liberation. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Carol. "Your grandmother would be proud of you. I'm proud of you. Don't let them guilt you." I started my car and drove away from the Riverside Country Club, away from the Morrison family Easter brunch, away from 38 witnesses and 2 parents who valued money over integrity. Grandma Eleanor had left me $400,000. But she'd given me something more valuable than money. She'd given me permission to say no. And I'd finally learned how to use it.